Probably all of you remember what axioms are from studying algebra and especially geometry back in the day. But as we think about developing curriculum, the material that I'm going to be using for this lecture is taken from Developing the Curriculum by Oliva and Gordon. But when we think about truth, we know that the only real truth is grounded in God's Word. Any other truth that people discover is only truth if it is verified as truth from God's Word. So whenever we think about developing curriculum, we will find that through history and philosophy that a lot of people have a lot of ideas about what truth is and what curriculum should be based on. We have whole truths that we find in God's Word, and we have partial truths that may work in some situations and may not work in other situations. People form hypotheses about what to do, and whenever you do your action research, you'll form a hypothesis. But in this particular lecture, I want to talk to you about the 10 axioms for curriculum development. The first axiom has to do with an inevitability of change. Change is both inevitable and it's necessary, for it's through change that life forms grow and develop. If we did not have change, none of us would ever change. And change affects curriculum. As you're developing your curriculum, things will change. Right now in our country, we see a lot of changing values and cultural diversity. The basic values that we have from God's Word do not change, but other values that are not strictly biblical based will change. This is a completely different country than the one in which I grew up. It's a different one. The family has changed. The way we view family, the way families are constructed have changed. The microelectronics revolution has made a huge change. I mean, people don't use blackboards anymore. We use PowerPoints, and we interview people from all over the world in our classroom. We have a changing world of work that makes a difference with curriculum. What our students are going to be doing later. Equal rights have made a difference, and what that means in your school and in your community. Crime and violence have affected changes in curriculum, as have health and national health needs. We might also add regional wars, threat of nuclear war, politics. I mean, right now we know everything going on all the time, and that was not true years ago. There's also a lack of purpose and meaning that we might see happening in our country. Axiom 2 is curriculum as a product of its time. The second axiom is actually a corollary of the first. Quite simply, a school curriculum not only reflects, but also is a product of its time. That means that some curriculum is like a tortoise moving slowly. Some curriculum is very slow to change. Other parts of curriculum change very quickly. I mean, when we went from, I can't remember what it's called, to programming, where you didn't have Word, and then all of a sudden we had Windows and Word, and then we had QuickTime, and we have Flash, and all these things that make a difference. Those things move fast. If you buy any type of technology now, it's going to be changed before you ever learn it very well. We also have a very rapid accumulation of knowledge. I mean, you have to decide which knowledge you're going to teach in your class, and you have to sort it out. And then you have to think about the political changes and laws that affect you as a teacher. Right now, I think we are bombarded with more knowledge than any other generation ever has been. I mean, I wonder, is there really more crime now, or do we just know about more crime now? I mean, I don't know. There are a lot of forces at work as far as curriculum goes. You've got the effects of the Cardinal Principles of Secondary Education by the Commission of Reorganization of the Secondary Education. You also have the Education for All American Youth. You have A Nation at Risk. I mean, Horace Mann, Ben Franklin, Mortimer Adler. I mean, if we think about all of the different forces that are at work, the philosophies, essentialism, which moved into Unitarianism and on into essentialism and progressivism. I mean, you think about the philosophies at work. and the curricular responses that had to happen as a result of those forces at work. And in change to curricular responses, we have changes that are instructional responses. So we know that change is inevitable, and curriculum is going to be a product of its time. I think Axiom 3 is one that curriculum developers forget about. They think we're going to change curriculum, everything is going to be different. But that's not really true. Most change in curriculum is concurrent change. That means that a change that was made earlier in time can affect the change that's being made now, and they can exist side by side concurrently. They can be juxtaposed or they can work together. Just because you make one change doesn't mean you throw away everything else. I've had students who think that if they make one change, they have to throw out the way they used to do things. No, you keep the things that are the same. We've had many different types of classrooms: open classroom, closed classroom, multi-grade classroom, lots of types of classrooms, and there's still today many types of classrooms going on. And when the status quo no longer serves the needs of your students, that's when you have to change. Axiom 4 has to do with the change in people. I know you say, if you've been teaching for any amount of time, you've seen a huge change in people. And curriculum change results from change in people. You have to think about the factors that affect changes. I mean, think about the difference in people. I mean, years ago, if the boss said to do something, you did it, and now people argue with the boss. Think about the different relationship that children have with their parents. But the other change has to be the teachers. Teachers can no longer just be told, you do this. Well, they are, and some of them do it, but you have more chance of the teachers actually teaching the curriculum if there's buy-in. And in order to have buy-in, people have to be empowered, and they have to know that what they think makes a difference. So Axiom 4, change in people, affects changes in curriculum. Axiom 5 stresses the fact that curriculum development is a cooperative endeavor. When you go in your classroom and you shut the door, you're teaching in isolation. But curriculum, a good curriculum, a usable curriculum, cannot be developed in isolation. Its curriculum change is affected as a result of cooperative endeavor on the part of groups. It takes several groups: curriculum specialists, teachers working together, people who understand the policies and the rules. It takes group deliberation and group consensus. Carl D. Glickman said, any comprehensive change is made without the understanding and support of at least a core majority of educators and parents will fail, not necessarily because of the changes themselves, but because of the way they came about. This is on page 29 of Oliva's Developing the Curriculum. Axiom 6 has to do with decision-making. Curriculum development is basically a decision-making process. Every step of the way, academic decisions are being made. First, you have choices among disciplines. Which disciplines are you going to include? Then you have choices among competing viewpoints. Planners have to decide whether they agree that bilingual education best serves the needs of this segment of society. If they decide they are, then they have to decide how to do that. You have to make decisions about interscholastic athletics for girls, for boys, whether pupils with learning disabilities should be mainstreamed, should have a special aid, or should be in special classes. How are you going to group students? Are you going to do it by age, by gender, by hetero, or are you going to do it heterogeneously? Then you have the choice of emphases. Should it give extra help to poor readers? Should it provide programs for the gifted? What about disadvantaged students? Are you going to have special programs for them? Should school funds be diverted from one group of students to another group? Then you have to choose the methods that you're going to use. What's the best way to teach reading? How should we teach math? What's the best way to teach language, whole language? Should we include calculators from a small age in math, or do they begin to learn and then we add calculators later? What about eliminating bias and ethnicity problems from the curriculum? Does it matter if youth today can write in cursive? All of these are choices of methods that you have to make. And then you have choices in organization of your curriculum. So, which approach is going to provide the best organization for your curriculum? Should you have alternative forms of schooling within and without the system? Should elementary students work in open space or pod setting or self-contained classrooms? Should school operate year-round? Should they be single-track, multi-track? Should that be based on ability? Should we really reduce class size? So, the two necessary characteristics of a curriculum planner are the ability to affect decisions after sufficient study of a problem and the willingness to make decisions. If you cannot make decisions, you cannot develop curriculum. Axiom 7 is continuous process. You are always developing curriculum. It's never completely developed. You do your best to make the curriculum the best you can, but it's always changing. You're never going to have a final curriculum. This is my curriculum, because things are always changing. Axiom 8 says that curriculum development is a comprehensive process. Curriculum development is historically been hit or miss. I mean, we've done a lot of patching and cutting and adding, experimenting, troubleshooting, but Hilda Taba made the same observation when she likened curriculum development to quilt making, the compilation of diverse individual contributions that are interconnected only by threads of similarity. It's actually, in the past, curriculum development has just been too fragmented. It needs to be much more holistic. Curriculum encompasses everything. You're going to be learning about curriculum, what curriculum is, the different parts of curriculum, and you can see that it's a holistic process and it's far-reaching, reaches more than just what you're doing in your classroom at this moment. It requires a generous investment of physical and human resources. Probably the reason that it's been fragmented up to this point is because of the amount of resources that it does require. Axiom 9 says that systematic curriculum development is more effective than trial and error. All of us hate trial and error. I mean, you just hate it when you plan this wonderful lesson and it falls flat. It didn't work at all. That's trial and error. You need systematic development for your curriculum. Curriculum development should be made comprehensive by looking at the whole canvas and by following an established set of procedures, which is much more effective than trial and error. If you follow an agreed upon model for curriculum development that outlines or charts the sequences of steps to be followed, then your curriculum is much more likely to be comprehensive and successful. If you subscribe to the axioms that we've talked about before, and you do your best to maintain professionalism and subscribe, you may not be successful, but you're more likely to be successful. Remember, your limitation is your existing curriculum. And how are you going to start where you are and build to where you're going to be? Which takes us to Axiom 10, starting from the existing curriculum. Do not ignore the existing curriculum. Start with that curriculum. Just like the teacher starts with what the students already know and build on that, you start with a curriculum that's already there and build on that. Change doesn't take place overnight. Quantum leaps can be found, but they're not always successful. We need to start where we are. So we've talked about 10 axioms of curriculum development. Let me briefly review those for you. The first axiom was change is both inevitable and necessary, for it is through change that life forms grow and develop. Axiom 2, a school curriculum not only reflects, but also is a product of its time. Axiom 3, curriculum changes made at an earlier period of time can exist concurrently with the newer curriculum changes at a later period of time. Axiom 4, curriculum change results from changes in people. Axiom 5, curriculum change is affected as a result of cooperative endeavor on the part of groups. 6, curriculum development is basically a decision-making process. 7, curriculum development is a never-ending process. Axiom 8, curriculum development is comprehensive process. Axiom 9, curriculum development, systematic curriculum development is more effective than trial and error. And Axiom 10, the curriculum planner starts from where the curriculum is, just as the teacher starts from where the students are.